Marvel is making an animated series based on their What If line of comics that will show us alternate timelines within the MCU. Here are 10 what if stories that Marvel won't make. Because they're too chicken. What if Tony Stark's dying act when he used the Infinity Gauntlet was to kill all the aliens? Instead of wiping out Thanos and his army, what if he'd simplified the order to kill all the aliens because it's all aliens that he wants dead, and he's acting purely out of fear and anger? And so, as he's dying in Pepper's arms, as Spider-Man's crying, Drax says, "I don't feel so good," and as Gamora and Captain Marvel and the rest of the alien Avengers get dusted, we realize that Tony Stark just wiped out all life in the universe that doesn't come from Earth. And from then on, we deal with the consequences for a planet that knew intelligent life existed elsewhere in the universe, but it doesn't anymore. We killed everyone else, and now we're alone in the universe. What if Marvel treated Netflix Daredevil with the respect he deserves? What if there were no fake-out deaths in the MCU? What if Loki really died at the end of Thor, and Coulson died in Avengers, and Nick Fury died in Winter Soldier, and Bucky died in First Avenger, and everyone in Infinity War stayed dead, but Quicksilver survived?
You didn't see that coming?
What if Edgar Wright finished his Ant-Man movie? What if the MCU progressed as it would have had Disney never bought Marvel and the movies kept being distributed by Paramount? Without that Mickey Mouse censorship, they could have adapted Iron Man's Demon in a Bottle arc. And meanwhile, Marvel Studios would keep producing Hulk movies to be distributed by Universal. And how differently would the Spider-Man deal have turned out if Sony had been negotiating with Marvel and Paramount instead of Disney? Meanwhile, the productions don't have quite the same budgets behind them, but they're just as popular with audiences and successful at the box office as they would have been because, they were already. What if this?
As if gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants weren't enough.
Actually happened. What if the MCU built up to Iron Man, Ed Norton's Hulk, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and Fox's X-Men teaming up in a movie with so many companies behind it that when you see the characters on screen together, you don't have to worry about the terrifying repercussions this will have for the rest of the film industry? What if the Submariner was in these movies? Or, better yet, what if the Dom Mariner was in these movies? What if Tom Holland's Spider-Man was driven by the belief that he has a responsibility to do the right thing? What if he wasn't always acting in self-interest? What if his choice to be Spider-Man did make his life harder? What if it actually meant something when he said this?
Look, when you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you.
And what if his entire essence as a character wasn't defined by his relationship to Iron Man? What if Disney just got it over with and made that Marvel Star Wars crossover? We all know it's coming. And finally, what if Iron Man had flopped? What if the MCU never happened, and post-credit scenes in cinematic universes never swallowed up every Hollywood blockbuster that gets made anymore? What if Marvel Studios was a failure, and the rights to characters just kept getting auctioned off to different production companies? What if Marvel didn't normalize superhero movies? What if DC had kept on the path they were on from The Dark Knight onwards without ever trying to imitate the success of the Avengers? What movies would get made instead? Where would the zeitgeist and Hollywood trends have taken the film industry? And while the big money went into different projects, what if Marvel movies kept being made the way they were? What if they still handed out the properties to visionary directors? Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't, but they could always take a chance on something because there's no expectation for them to adhere to a consistent look, sound, tone, or continuity. Of course, Kevin Feige is still producing all these movies, as he was before Iron Man, but he doesn't have the power to tie them together. And what if Marvel themselves, as a comics publisher that, I'll remind you, had filed for bankruptcy in 1996 and stayed afloat by licensing out its properties to movie studios, continued its downward spiral, having failed to assert themselves into the production side of their movies? And today, Marvel fans look back on 2008's Iron Man as a curiosity, like the 90s Captain America movie or the 2005 Fantastic Four. Hey, do you remember that time they made an Iron Man movie? Who cares about Iron Man, right?